church. If you have your Bibles, if you'd open up to the book of Nehemiah. What is there in our society right now that causes anxiety? I don't want you to think from a political point of view, but from a biblical point of view. From a biblical point of view, what can create anxiety? What happened in Falmouth, that could create anxiety, but then you get a specialist like Coop and he'll tell you, no. As soon as it's cordoned off, there's no more anxiety. But it's a novel thing, it doesn't happen often here, and so it's a big deal. Doerr, if a train gets off the tracks in the Panhandle of Texas or Kansas or Oklahoma, what's that? What happens? Is that a big deal? No, just another thing. The wind blows hard enough there constantly to blow off trains off the tracks constantly. You can't believe wind can be so hard, right? But it is. So it's a new thing here, and it's a densely populated area, and the news crew can get there closer. So, whether it's blown out or not, it can create anxiety because we see it. What else creates anxiety in our life? Jesus, you mentioned coming from Venezuela, and I've seen a lot of clips from what's going on in Venezuela, and that's concerning, I'm sure. Is that concerning to you? Do you have family that live there? And so you know about it, right? And it's not nice to know to be far away from your family and not to be able to do anything, but also to look to America and say, well, our kids are in a better place now. Yet even that can create anxiety. So there's a lot of things going on, and in our lives that we should be aware of, and we should want to find out. And this is what Nehemiah is all about. It's about somebody who is living in a foreign country, and he gets information from home, and that home causes him to worry. It's a lesson for us how we should be concerned and always be mission-minded. And always think about our brothers and sisters of Christ who are suffering, whether they are in our area or further afield. We need to constantly know about that. The theme for Nehemiah is returned exiles rebuild the wall of Jerusalem despite opposition. The context starts from 444 and narrates from Nehemiah's journey to Jerusalem all the way through to where he gets made governor of Judah in 630. Judah is a suburb or a province of Persia. And then we go to the timeline, and you can see more or less where we are and how the Israelites have been coming back to Jerusalem in waves, but he has not come back. So all the people are back home, and he is stuck. He's not getting back home, and so his heart is there. And when you think about Susa, it's not very far from where Jerusalem is. It's closer than where the capital city of Persia is, and so it's more on his mind. The outline would be the walls are rebuilt, the covenant is renewed, and society is reformed. It is a great book when it comes to leadership. You want to know anything about leadership, how we as a people should restore the New Testament church, this is a good book to see the management and leadership principles involved. I'm going to do a basic head, heart, and hand in chapter 1. So everything we do today is just going to be chapter 1. There's not enough time to go through all of this. Half an hour is not even big enough for chapter 1. And we're going to have some very interesting questions come up that you're going to want to talk about. So we might carry this over to next week. When it comes to the head, we've got the questions on the side over here that we'll come to. Let's just go through the text. I've got some commentary for you inserted as we go through the text. The words of Nehemiah, the son of Hakaliah. Now it happened in the month of Chislev, that is November to December, in the 20th year of the king of Persia, which means he became king in 464. In the 20th year, as I was in Susa, that's the winter palace or the holiday house of the king, the citadel, the capital city of the holiday, where he was, that Hananiah, later on, Hananiah, his brother, in chapter 7, verse 2, gets appointed to a high position by Nehemiah. That Hananiah, one of my brothers, came with certain men from Judah. So they came from what is known as a province of Judah to the capital city of the holiday, like the Disneyland, right? So here is Nehemiah. He's got a very, very senior job. He's not an old guy. He's sort of still very young. And what is his job? He's the last verse of chapter 1. He's the cupbearer to the king. So what do you think the cupbearer does? What's that? He has access to the king, and he has access to something else too. He has access to wine. He's in the holiday capital. Do you think the king had a very stoic life, or do you think he had a little bit of pleasure in his life? So he's in a holiday environment, and a lot of pleasure going on all around, and he's a young guy. So keep that all in mind, right? And then we have his brother there, Hananiah, and he comes and gives him this report. And I asked them concerning the Jews who escaped, who had survived the exile, and concerning Jerusalem. So Nehemiah has a heart of a missionary. And we know that from that question. What is a missionary going to do? He's going to want to know what's going on in your country. Chris, do you ever wonder what's going on in the lives of those people that you met? And you get a few texts, right? And you get a little bit of communication going on. If you could sit down with them right now, do you think you'd have something to talk about? Right? What's going on? How are you doing? By the way, we were talking about this last time. Is this okay? You were talking about maybe increasing your building or getting some chairs. You know, how's that going? You'll have things to talk about. You will be curious, right? If somebody from that area had to come back now to visit you, you're going to have a lot of questions. And that's what you should be doing. So interesting what he does. Verse 3, listen to Hananiah's report, the brother's report. And they said to me, the remnant there in the province who had survived the exile is in great trouble and shame. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates are destroyed by fire. Throughout Nehemiah, we'll see 6 of these gates being repaired. So if this is happening, right? If this is happening in your backyard, if Jerusalem was the temple, you've got to understand that. Who lived in the temple? God lived in the temple. If you, as a Christian, God lives in the temple, which is you, right? If something's going wrong with the temple, what will you do? Would you be interested? Would you want to repair it? Right? So he should be there. He should be working on the wall. He should be fixing it. Instead, he's giving this factual report. Do you get that? Do you get that from verse 3? I want you to notice his report, because I'm going to show you the difference between the brothers, how they perceive this. And I want you to ask yourself, how do you perceive news that comes to you like that? Are you going to be more like Nehemiah, or are you going to be more like his brother, if we get that far tonight? Okay, so Susa was the king's vacation house. Where did you go on vacation that touched your heart or disturbed you? Anybody got some memories of vacation places? Very fond memories, sometimes not so fond memories. You can all got something like that in mind, right? Where should Nehemiah have been? They've all gone back. Where should Nehemiah be? In Jerusalem. He's seen all his family even go back, and yet he's stuck over here. What temptation faced people away from home? If you're on a business trip and you're away from home, what temptations would face you? Certain attractions? Yes, because of anonymity. Nobody knows you're here. It's a strange place. Nobody's going to see you in a motel room what you're clicking. It's strange that during Promise Keepers, the reports on what actually gets watched in the motels is unbelievable. Just certain types of things just skyrocket during those times. And so when you get away from home, like Nehemiah is away from home, there's a lot of temptations that face him. And sometimes we don't see that. We just see him as this big hero. We don't really know what he was facing. And it's amazing that even in the worst place, God can form a person like Nehemiah. We mustn't get worried about America going to the dogs or society. And this is not America, folks. This is the world. The morality in the world has gone really bad. It won't affect Christians. It won't affect people who really want to know God. They will actually rise up, and the hot and cold will become more and more different, more and more obvious. What heartbreaking away from home news does he receive? The remnant there in the province who had survived the exile is in great trouble and shame. Why? The wall of Jerusalem is broken down and its gates are destroyed by fire. All right, there's a lot more in that Nehemiah would have been aware of because of his high position and who the people were responsible for the wall not being built, but we won't go into that. I want to more stick with anxiety as our theme here. What triggers Nehemiah's concern? What triggers his concern here? It's what's going on in the temple, what's going on in the house of God. That's what triggers his concern. It's what's going on at home. He has a map that shows you where he was, and that there's Persia here, and there's the metropolitan area there, and there's Susa. So he's a little bit closer to Jerusalem over there. So this is the news came there, and it's a pretty good trip to go to see your brother, unless your brother is a very important person in a very nice holiday area, and so you're going to go and have a good time seeing your brother. And he's got a wonderful job, and so you can imagine as he's going to see his brother that they're thinking about this. This is going to be a wonderful, wonderful time. Okay, this is a letter that a Church of Christ received not too long ago. This is page 1 of 32. United States District Court for the Southern District of Iowa, Southern Division. Fort Des Moines, Church of Christ, the nonprofit religious corporation, the plaintiff, versus Angela Jackson, Patricia Lipsky, Matthew Hosford, Tom Connolly, Douglas, don't know how to pronounce that, Lily and Lawrence, each in his or her official capacity as commissioners of the Iowa Civil Rights Commission. Kristen H. Johnson, in her official capacity as the executive director of Iowa Civil Rights Commission. Tom Miller, in his official capacity as the Attorney General of the state of Iowa and the city of Des Moines, Iowa. The city of Des Moines, right? These are the defendants there. And I only cut down half of it, but it goes on, and it's pretty scary. This is the take that I found out from a link that Ken Carter sent me. And by the way, that's the Des Moines Church of Christ signs. Christian trust in God, not the GOP is the one sign. The other one is abortion, is America's Holocaust, and they're pretty good at changing up the signs because there's quite a few that they had out there. Okay, for Des Moines Church of Christ versus Jackson, what's at stake? The freedom of the churches to teach their religious beliefs and to use their house of worship consistently with those beliefs without government intrusion and threat of punishment. Summary. For Des Moines Church of Christ's motto is to love God, to love people, and to serve everyone. That's from their website. This Iowa church is active in its community and welcomes everyone to learn more about the good news of God's forgiving love and compassion. That's their problem. Right there. That's why they're in trouble. They welcome everyone to learn more about the good news of God's forgiving love and compassion. No, I called the preacher and spoke to him. And I looked at some of the pictures there. He calls himself Pastor Michael and stuff like that. On baptism, they teach exactly. I've listened to one of his sermons on baptism, and they teach the same as what the Church of Christ does. This idea of the good news there is what we believe in, and this is how churches of Christ are going to be attacked, or any church that stands up for what is truth. It could be attacked, not will be. But because the church welcomes non-members to attend its worship services and other activities in Iowa Civil Rights Commission, takes the position that the state law requires Fort Des Moines to censor its speech about human sexuality and make its showers and restrooms accessible to the opposite biological sex. Do you get that? Did you get that? But because the church welcomes non-members to attend its worship services and other activities, the Iowa Civil Rights Commission takes the position that the state law requires Fort Des Moines to censor its speech about human sexuality. This is something that we need to be praying about. This is very, very current right now. Chris?
Go back a slide for a second. That makes it look like the plaintiff versus the defendant. It looks like the church is suing them.
Yeah, I'm not a legal brain.
I think what's happening is, we had a friend of ours from Iowa who spent the weekend with us, who's a member of the church there, and he was telling us there's churches that are challenging the law, and what the law is stating right now is that you don't have to do anything with your bathrooms as a normal church. But if you open your church up, like for a voting place,
Oh.
or you open your church up where you invite like a support group or
Yes.
a Kiwanis group or whatever, then they're saying you do need to put these special things in place. So I think there are churches, I think this is a challenge to that, saying
Okay.
we don't think that's right, kind of thing.
So this is a bit of an overreach. Okay? So it goes on to say, the state law at issue prohibits public accommodations from indicating that a person is unwelcome based on his or her gender identity. The Fort Des Moines welcomes everyone, but the speech ban is so broadly written as to prohibit a pastor's sermon about God's design in creating each person as either male or female. The law also includes a facility use mandate that compels public accommodations to open their restrooms, locker rooms, showers to persons based on gender identity rather than biological sex. Even asking about a person's gender identity in conjunction with using sex-specific facilities violates the law, and so on. Well, it's something that I hoped I wouldn't ever see, and whether the church started it or whether the government started it, there's something going on there, and so that's what we need to watch for. Going into the carrying on with the head, the first thing you understand with the anxiety here is we need to learn stuff. So if there's something like this and we see it, we dig, and if we keep digging, what do we find? From what the discussions that Brian brought up here and Chris observing something, is this something that should concern us right now?
Why not? If we can't preach against sin, we have no business saying we are a church.
Okay, but
That's the bottom line.
exactly.
And right now, if a man walked into the women's restroom and we tried to do something about it,
Yes.
probably we'd be sued. We better recognize that sin is at our doorstep.
Okay, so the information that I'm gathering here, Ken, is Brian mentioned that the government is not going after the church, but the church is going after the government.
Well, it's because of the interpretation that the state
Is made, and so they're challenging that. Okay,
Sorry?
they're challenging it. Yes, because of that interpretation, they're challenging it.
and we're going to have to do the same thing.
Okay, what we're doing here is gathering information, and very unbiased in a non-emotional sense, not a political sense, just gathering information. Worst case scenario, do we need a building? We don't need a building. Okay? There is a movement, according to Christian Chronicle at the moment, in Oklahoma City for young people to leave buildings and to go into house churches. I didn't know about that. Oh, wow, okay, that's interesting. So no matter what gets thrown at the church, if we remain the church, you can't kill it. It's like it's rubbery. You try to hurt it, it's just going to split and faction into a dispersion, a diaspora. And then what you were trying to do is really complicated, because then you've got faithful people on fire for speaking the truth all over the place.
But I agree with Ken in that I think it's maybe time if churches start putting their feet down and kind of standing up for our faith, our belief,
Yeah.
in the Bible, not according to how
Yes.
And unless churches that might be challenged
Yes.
into saying, oh, well, you know, if you have individuals, you know,
Yes.
prefer to go to a multi-sex or whatever,
Yes.
you know, background,
Yes. Yes.
then you have to provide that.
Yes.
Then that's when churches need to stand up and need to say,
Yeah.
no, you know, or challenge the court systems and the laws. Start pushing back.
Okay, so Miss Betty,
In a calm way.
Miss Betty says we must stand up and we must start pushing back in a calm way.
Isn't that a form of persecution of the church itself by the state?
Yes, but that should happen. The persecution will happen. It's going to happen. We give to Caesar what is Caesar's. We obey governmental leaders, whether we agree with them or not, because the Bible tells us to. We keep our image clean. We do what God tells us to do, and we keep preaching the truth, not in a way to provoke arguments. The church will never be a church that's going to be sanctioned by the government. We don't want that. In South Africa, I saw a state-sanctioned church actually killed the country. You don't want that. But we want to be able to preach the truth. I felt like sending a letter to them and saying, listen, if you want to come join us, we will welcome you. And then I called the preacher and I spoke to him, and he said he'd been at the Ark not too long ago. And I said, well, if you'll come through this way again, bring the kids along. And we'll be praying for you all and things like that. So we will encourage them. We will remain autonomous. We'll keep praying for them. He told me that they're in a very bad battle right now. And I also think he's in a very bad battle because I think a lot of churches of Christ preachers, I'm not the first one, I don't think, to call him, because he was eager to get me off the phone before I started to ask him about about their worship services and things. But I went on Google Maps and I saw what Brian told me. They have 2 pictures on Google Maps, and one is with the worship service with the instruments in the background. I don't want to point fingers. I don't want to say because they're doing this or doing that, that's why. But just remain true to the Bible.
I found in my personal life in the last years as I've come to church and I'm more spiritual than when I'm in a difficult situation. I still have my moments where I'm screaming and all.
Yes.
But normally, when that goes away,
Yes.
or when it doesn't go away, and I just do the next thing.
Okay.
The next thing from some voice I say, God, that I am calmer, and it works out the way God
Yeah.
wants.
So
You have to picture, as long as we're breathing, able to talk, able to communicate, then,
exactly.
and
So Roy is saying he's calmer the last year or so that he's been attending here. Still ups and downs, but he's a lot more spiritual.
I mean, this all this came from bringing my children here.
Yes.
But the world loves to invoke fear.
Yes. Exactly.
The devil is everywhere.
Yeah. The devil loves fear. That's his big weapon.
I mean, I do not, please don't shoot me. I'm probably a liberal Christian. Now, liberal meaning, I against the death penalty, I'm against that. I'm for helping, I consider myself that. But to tell you the truth, that the bathroom controversy is the most absurd thing.
Yeah. Roy says that he's a liberal Christian and that the bathroom thing is absurd. I'm repeating what you're saying, Roy, for people who can't hear you.
I think it's better to work with people.
Yeah.
And have them be open. You can't
Yeah.
compromise being a Christian by saying that homosexuality is a Christian thing, and it's not.
Yeah.
But I'm for civil liberties at a certain level, people being left alone,
Yeah.
and that's fine. But I'm sure those kind of folks have been dealing with this issue since they.
Well, the devil lies awake at night, Roy, in people's hearts, trying to figure out how to bait us as Christians. And he's very good at this. And you don't want to get into a mud fight with the devil. Really, you don't. Brian?
What Betty said, I think that we do live in a democracy, just like Paul appealed to his Roman citizenship when he was being persecuted.
Yes.
That we do live in a democracy where we can actually, there is a process to fight
Yes.
laws that we think are unjust, and I think we can do that to a point.
Yes.
And then if it goes all the way, we lose that. And then if it, at some point goes to where we have to meet in privacy in house churches or whatever.
Yes. So, excellent point. Brian is saying that Paul did appeal to his Roman citizenship, and you follow that. He first was persecuted, and then he appealed to it, which was great, gave him a little bit more power. But if it comes to that, where we have to do house churches, we do house churches. If we have to go like China underground, then we go underground. Hopefully never. Corey?
Many of the, quote, churches who find themselves in these difficulties are churches who have given in to little things here and there.
I agree.
Divorce, things that now that we're in this argument, quote,
Yes.
about homosexuality,
Yes.
things like that. Many of the arguments that come back to us are, well, this is a better family than someone who's been divorced 7 times.
Yes.
And for those churches who have given in to
Yes.
those issues, they have no answer for that. But
Yes.
for us, as long as we stand firm in what the Bible says,
Exactly.
we can't be pulled into those arguments because we've stood firm the whole time.
So,
And not to stick our head in the sand and say it's never going to come
No.
to a point where we have to fight it.
yeah.
But if we just keep doing what we know to do and what we can read about
Yeah,
doing,
yeah. Keep our focus on spreading the gospel, not on abortion. It's horrible, a huge place in judgment, terrible things for people to do that, but not lopsiding our focus. Our focus is spreading the gospel, not what the devil wants it to be. Keep your eyes on the game. But we stand for these things. And if we won't get through Nehemiah today. But we're going to next week, and especially read the rest of Nehemiah chapter 1. You're going to see exactly what Corey and what Roy's been saying is true. Because if you stand up for the truth, and if you're the gap man, stand in the gap, then God can use us. But if you give into those little things, folks, that's why I try to separate politics right at the beginning. In respect to Roy, no such thing as a liberal Christian or a conservative Christian. We are Christians and we follow the Bible. Great, okay? So we got 2 comments over here.
I'm sorry, I just, there's been a comment made, and I think, and maybe I can see partially from your perspective, about how sometimes maybe it would be easier if an individual had not been raised in the church, like I was born in the church and raised all my life, but I felt like that has helped to solidify me, and it's probably much like Ken or your, whomever. And it solidifies our faith, not to the point to where we will be like dictators, but we have been accepting. But I do know that through that consistency of being brought up in the church,
Yeah.
you don't give in
Yeah.
just because this is the flavor of the day, so to
Yes,
speak,
yes.
or with society.
Yeah.
You have to stand up for your
You have to stand up for your beliefs. We s-
accept someone who come in.
Yeah.
Comes in, wants to be a part of the church. But you have to teach them.
Yeah.
This is what the churches of Christ is all about, and this is what the Bible says.
Yes. Yeah, stay on the word. Stay on the word. Coop?
What Brian said was, where we live in democracy, and everyone can fight what they want to fight, but what America's doing is trying to accept everything. You don't have to accept everything. You can acknowledge it. I think, if I believed that there was a giant shark above my head that only I can see, and if
Yes.
I did anything wrong, he was going to bite me and kill me.
Yeah.
You don't have to accept that.
Yeah.
You acknowledge it. Yeah, I acknowledge it. You believe in that, and you're an idiot. Thanks, but we as the church need to we shouldn't have to accept everything. We can
Yeah.
acknowledge and stuff, but just
No, I've never accepted things like what's going on now. I called the guy. I asked, "Is there something we can do?" And I wanted to find out just how strong our fellowship is with him, because then there would be more that we would be doing. I believe that boycotting Home Depot because they employ a certain group of people. And calling everybody to do the same, I believe you'll have more impact getting on your knees and talking to God than getting involved in something that can put you up on a pedestal and make you a target for the devil. So we must keep doing what God is telling us to do. Don't have any fear. Don't have any fear. We're a very strong country. We're a very strong church. But we do have people that will look towards us in the near future for guidance. And if they see us panicking, that's different. And then getting back to what Brian said, just because we're Christians doesn't mean we need to let people take advantage of us. In fact, when I see somebody doing that because I'm a Christian, and I just read 1 Corinthians 6 and 1 Corinthians 5 this week, and you should go read that again. It's really, really good, and it's pertinent to what we're talking about. He actually says, guys, you should allow yourself to be defrauded. But he's talking to Christians, with each other. He's not talking about somebody outside of the Christianity. Because we're Christians, they think we can always turn the other cheek. Just for that reason, I'm going to stand up. But I'm going to stand up individually. Unfortunately, whenever I do that, people say, oh, that's a member of the Church of Christ doing that. And they don't say that's Neville. Let's close in a word of prayer. Father God, thank you so much for leading us in our heads into this discussion. Help us, Father, to accrue more information in the week from things that could be bothering us, and also from your word, how somebody like Nehemiah dealt with a political issue in his day that was very, very serious, that could have upset Jerusalem and everything that you were trying to do there. And let us learn the lesson so that we may follow the pattern that has already been given to us. Help us, Father, always to be true to your word, privately in our lives and publicly before men also. It's through your Son's name we pray. Amen.